Our story begins with the arrival of Amerigo Vespucci in present-day Argentina in 1516. However, it would take over 7 decades before Juan de Garay was able to establish a permanent settlement known as Buenos Aires. Now, only disease was able to subdue indigenous resistance. However, the Spanish neglected. They didn't care about Argentina. They favored Peru, which had multiple silver mines, which kept the Spanish wartime economy afloat. Over 9,000 tons of silver went to the Spanish monarchy. However, that neglect of Buenos Aires would prove integral to their support for independence. As a hub of smuggling and illegal activity, they were able to receive contraband items of the Enlightenment and spread the Enlightenment ideals through the Creole upper class. However, the Age of Enlightenment wasn't the only factor within Buenos Aires' pursuit for independence. The Bourbon reforms pushed by Charles III, who had just lost the 7 Years' War with Great Britain, had left Spain broke. Without any other options, Charles turned to Spanish America to push his policies of mercantilism. Charles tightened central control over the colonies and ended the smuggling port within Buenos Aires. It also created state monopolies on tobacco production and prevented colonies from producing manufactured goods. Now, this completely crushed the entrepreneurial spirit within Buenos Aires, affecting the Creoles. In addition, the crown also pushed changed administration, which took powers from the Creoles into the hands of the Peninsulars, Spaniards who had no interest in the Spanish America. Naturally, the Creoles began to disassociate themselves with the royal authority. However, the Spanish screwed up with their military reform. They gave Creoles more power after disassociating themselves with the crown. By 1810, the year of revolution, over 2/3 of the officer corps were Creoles, who had no love for the Spanish crown.
So at this point, Creoles were raring for independence, but they needed an excuse. And Napoleon, well, he gave them one. See, Spain had rejected the alliance after the defeat at Trafalgar, but Napoleon wasn't having any of it. So the Peninsular War ensued, and Napoleon, in his infinite wisdom, decided to dispose King Ferdinand of his seat of power. Of course, the colonies and the Spanish didn't take too kindly to that, and they declared the occupation to be illegal and declared their independence. And on May 25th, 1810, popular unrest forced the Viceroy Cisneros to abdicate his position of power, and Cornelio Saavedra was elected president of the new Primera Junta, the new executive power of Argentina. And independence could be described in a single battle, the Battle of Trafalgar. Now, Lexie here will reenact the British side as Horatio Nelson. Meanwhile, Lydia will be the Spanish and the French navies combined. Now, Lexie is outnumbered and outgunned. However, she uses an unorthodox style of fighting. She charges head-on to the French line, and that surprising move catches the Spanish and the French completely off guard. So in 1806, Lexie here will be playing as Colonel Beresford, who leads around a couple hundred troops against Buenos Aires in the hopes of capturing the city. However, that attempt fails. Now in 1807, Beresford receives reinforcements of around 8,000 troops and again attacks the militias of Buenos Aires. However, again, the militias of Buenos Aires, led by the Creoles, were able to push back against the British and inflicted heavy casualties, numbers over 6,000, and the British were completely defeated. Now this was a huge victory, not only for Buenos Aires, but for the Creoles of Buenos Aires. Now, huge waves of nationalism and pride erupted in Argentina as they had just defeated one of the greatest military powers without the help of their mother country, Spain.
So, on May 25th, 1810, popular unrest forced the Viceroy Cisneros to abdicate his viceroy position, and Cornelio Saavedra was elected president of the new Primera Junta. The junta then proceeded to declare all regions in South America to be independent.
However, their campaign would fail miserably when former Viceroy Liniers decides to launch an attack on the northern provinces of Argentina. Now, General Manuel Belgrano is outnumbered 2-1 and doesn't have the supplies or resources to take on the army head-to-head. So he leads them on a rapid chase, frankly. And he uses scorched earth tactics in the town of Jujuy to reduce the supplies and slow down the royalist army, who were unprepared for the desperate measures he would take. Now, guerrilla fighters would often harass the royalist army as they approached the town of Jujuy and approached the town of Tucumán. Now, the Primera Junta had orders for Belgrano to make his last stand at Cordoba, However, Belgrano made the executive call to make his last stand at Tucumán, where he knew the local populace would support him. So, tired, hungry, and constantly harassed by the guerrillas, General Tristan of the Spanish makes the decisive call to launch an attack on the Battle of Tucumán on September 24th, 1812. However, they were slaughtered by the droves. General Belgrano saw them coming and had his cavalry set up and artillery set up, and Tristan's troops were slaughtered like cattle. Now, the subsequent defeat of Tucumán led the Spanish to retreat to the Battle of Salta. Now, the Battle of Salta is the turning point of the war. I cannot stress this enough. This is where the Spanish fortunes end. After this, the Spanish will never be able to launch an offensive ever again in Argentina's territories. Now, Tristan was forced to surrender unconditionally. Nearly 3,000 Spaniards were captured, and all their weapons, ammunition, supplies, guns, artillery, and horses were all captured. The unconditional surrender devastated any hopes for the royal crown to reclaim any territory in Argentina. Right. So Lexie and Lydia here are going to recreate the battles of Tucumán and Salta. Now Lexie here is going to be General Belgrano and his Argentinian revolutionaries. And Lydia here is going to play General Tristan, the commander of the royalist forces. Now Lexie, or General Belgrano, knows he or she is outnumbered nearly 2-1. So she resorts to using scorched earth tactics to delay General Tristan from coming. Right. Now General Tristan is shocked at the brutality and unconventional warfare that General Belgrano uses. Furthermore, his troops are constantly harassed by guerrilla warfare fighters. Tired, hungry, and getting constantly harassed, General Tristan makes a decisive call, and on September 24th, 1812, launches an all-or-nothing charge at Tucumán. Well, Lexie, General Belgrano, has made her last stand due to the local populace being friendly to her. Now, the superior artillery positioning and superior cavalry maneuver completely destroyed General Tristan, who is forced to surrender and retreat drastically north. Now, the subsequent Battle of Salta, the next February in 1813, would signal the end for all Spanish operations. Now, Belgrano decides to make a charge at the Spanish stronghold in Argentina, and the results were devastating for the Spanish.
After the victories of Salta, the Triumvirate of Buenos Aires had secured massive amounts of territories. However, the Spanish threat had not subsided. However, on April 15, 1815, Congress convened, and on July 9, 1816, the independence of the provinces were declared. However, Chile was still a direct threat, as Spanish bases were there. And here comes José de San Martin, the hero of the Argentine Revolution, who would enact a daring campaign across the Andes, and would link up with Bernardo Higgins of the Chilean Creole leaders. Now, this surprise tactic would surprise and devastate the Spanish.
Meanwhile, the Royalist army had been hampered by flooded roads. On April 5, 1818, San Martin inflicted a close but decisive defeat on the Royalists. The defeat of Maipo crushed the Spanish army, as they had won several previous battles but made no inroads. Dejected and routed, the Spanish army retreated to Concepcion, and the threat of Chile and Argentina ended.
Now, Spanish influence would end in 1825 after the Battle of Ayacucho in Peru. However, Argentina was in the midst of a civil war between the Unitarists and the Federalists. Unitarists favored centralization and were based in Buenos Aires, while Federalists strived for autonomy on the frontier provinces. However, Juan Manuel de Rosas would seize power and become dictator after becoming the leader of the Federalist power. It would take until 1852 when José de Urquiza would lead a coalition and defeat Rosas at Caceres. He would sponsor the Constitution of Argentina in 1853, which forms the basis of Argentina today.
Well, I want to personally thank you guys for putting up with our crappy documentary. And Lexie says if I don't say that she wants to make me disappear, I don't know why. But I hope you guys enjoyed our presentation about Argentina. Hope you guys learned at least one thing, because it took me like 5 hours to do this, so please learn. Thank you.